Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily Dvar, and here's a brand new Halacha for you, and it's for Tuesday the 19th day of February. Here we go. Today's our last law for you about what bracha you make on a dessert at the end of a hamotzi meal. We had taught you that things like fruit get their own bori pri ha'etz when they're eaten at the end of a meal, and that's because, assuming that you're all full, and this is just an extra, so it's very separate from the bread and everything, and then you make a bori pri ha'etz on things like fruit at the dessert of a hamotzi meal. And then we told you in yesterday's law that cake was kind of interesting because cake is a little bit similar to the bread and a little bit not similar to the bread, and in some situations you would not make a bori mina mazonos, and in some cases you would. Now in today's law we add this fact, and that is, what if you're having cake at the end of the meal but it's clearly part of the meal? Like, for example, the main course didn't work. For some reason it just didn't fill you, or you didn't get enough, or you didn't like it, and you were actually eating the cake at the end of the meal because you're still really hungry, and unfortunately that's what you're going to fill yourself up on the cake at the end of the meal. If that's the case, then it clearly does not get its own bracha, and that's because it's clearly more attached to the meal, because you're actually eating it because you're still very hungry. Okay, so please remember that if you're eating cake at the end of the meal and you feel that you're doing it partially or mostly because you're still hungry, then the halacha is that you do not make a bori mina mazonos on that cake, because that is clearly part of the bread meal. You're still eating out of your hunger. You're not doing a dessert type activity. And now one more law, but this is a different one, still related to cake, etc. And that is, we've been discussing in our last law today and the day before with regular cake at the end of the meal. And now we have to just add, what if at the end of the meal you have some things that are clearly very different from bread, and they're not near the bread category the way cake is, and here they are: waffles, pancakes, kugels, and all other bori mina mazonos type of things which are not like bread at all. Okay, things that end up in the categories like waffles, pancakes, and kugels, those clearly need their own bori mina mazonos at the end of a meal, and that's because waffles, pancakes, kugels kinds of things are far from the status of bread, and therefore they surely get their own separate mazonos when eaten at the dessert, if they're eaten because it's just a dessert activity. If you're still very hungry and you're eating those things as part of the meal, then of course they don't get their own bracha. I hope I haven't confused you. If I have, you remember, discuss this with your rabbi. That's what these are. These are teaching laws so you can know more about the facts. But the last halacha again here is that you do not need a separate bori mina mazonos on your waffles, cakes, etc. if you are still hungry. But if you're eating them as a dessert activity very separate from the meal, and they're very different from bread, waffles, cakes, waffles and pancakes and things of the sort, then they would surely get their own bori mina mazonos. If it's confusing, remember, speak this through with your rabbi. Don't only rely on this. I'm just teaching you so that you know all the parameters that are out there, so that you can get much, much closer to doing all your brachas perfectly from now on. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.